My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a freelance graphic designer. I sat at the small, linen-draped table, the single flickering candle casting long shadows on the empty chair across from me. It was my 32nd birthday, and my parents, Linda and Robert, were supposed to be there. I'd booked a table at my favorite Italian place, a quiet spot downtown, weeks ago. They'd confirmed, of course. Then, an hour before, a text from my mother, "So sorry, something came up. Not feeling great. Rain check soon." No details, no real apology. Just a casual dismissal of an evening I genuinely looked forward to. Emily, my best friend, had rushed over to join me, sensing my quiet disappointment, but the empty space still felt loud. I was trying to smile through it, picking at my pasta, when my phone buzzed again. It was my mother. I expected a follow-up apology, perhaps a promise to make it up to me. Instead, the message read, "We urgently need $2,600 for the car. Can you transfer it tonight? Your father's really stressed." My fork clattered against the plate. The audacity, the timing, the complete lack of self-awareness, hit me like a physical blow. I felt a hot flush rise in my cheeks, but I simply nodded at Emily, who was watching me with concern. This wasn't just another request, it was a line in the sand. This time, I wouldn't be their ATM. To understand why this text, arriving on my birthday of all days, felt like such a profound betrayal, you need to know a bit about my family. My parents weren't bad people, not in the traditional sense. They loved me, I suppose, in their own chaotic way. But their love always came with a price tag, often literal. Growing up, our home was a whirlwind of financial drama. My father, Robert, was a kind but perpetually optimistic man who jumped from one get-rich-quick scheme to another. My mother, Linda, was the emotional engine, prone to grand pronouncements and even grander spending habits, convinced that the next big purchase would finally bring them happiness. They were always just about to make it big, which usually meant they were just about to need another loan from me. I was the only child, the responsible one by default. From a young age, I learned to manage my allowance, save for things, and understand that money didn't just appear. While other kids got new bikes, I was often hearing about the urgent car repair or the unexpected bill that meant my parents couldn't afford something they'd promised. I remember a small porcelain bird figurine, a gift from my grandmother, that sat on my dresser. It was slightly chipped on one wing, but it was solid, a small anchor in the shifting sands of my childhood. I'd often trace its smooth back, wishing my own world felt as stable. As I got older, the loans became more substantial. First, it was $50 for groceries, then a few hundred for an overdue utility bill, always with the promise of repayment that never quite materialized. They never directly demanded it until recently. It was always couched as a desperate plea, a last resort, making me feel guilty if I hesitated. The pattern solidified in college. I worked 2 jobs to cover my tuition and living expenses, determined to graduate debt-free. My parents, meanwhile, would call, often late at night, with a new crisis. Once, they needed $1,500 for a business opportunity that evaporated within weeks. Another time, it was $800 for a surprise tax bill. Each time, I'd deplete my savings, driven by a deep-seated fear of what would happen if I didn't. They'd always say, "We'll pay you back, sweetie, as soon as we're on our feet." But their feet never seemed to find solid ground. My father would nod solemnly, agreeing with my mother, but his eyes would always dart away when I mentioned repayment. My mother, on the other hand, would launch into a lengthy explanation of their hardships, making me feel selfish for even asking. This year, for my 32nd, I decided I wanted a low-key celebration, just a nice dinner. I chose the Italian place because it was cozy and relatively affordable, knowing my parents' financial situation was, as always, tight. I called my mother 3 weeks in advance, making sure to emphasize that this was important to me. "It's been a tough year, Mom," I remember saying. "I just want a nice, quiet evening with you and Dad." She'd been effusive, promising to be there, saying how much she loved me and how proud she was. My father even sent a separate text, confirming, "Looking forward to celebrating you, honey." I actually allowed myself to feel a flicker of hope that this time, things would be different. That they would prioritize me, just for one night. That hope, of course, was naive. The text arrived at 6:05 p.m., an hour before our reservation. So sorry, something came up. Not feeling great. Rain check soon. It was exactly what I'd expected, yet it still stung. It wasn't just the cancellation, it was the casualness of it, the assumption that I would just understand. I tried to call, but my mother didn't answer. My father texted back, "Your mom's not doing well, sweetie. Maybe next week." No apology for my birthday, just a deflection. I swallowed the lump in my throat and called Emily, who, bless her heart, dropped everything to join me. We sat there, trying to make light of it, but the empty chair at the table was a constant reminder of their absence. That's when the second text came, the one demanding $2,600. The car needs a new transmission, my mother's text explained further when I didn't respond immediately. It's $2,600, and we don't have it. You know how much we rely on that car for Dad's errands. It's really urgent, Sarah. We're counting on you. The message was laced with a thinly veiled thread of emotional distress, a classic tactic. Emily, who had seen this play out countless times, shook her head. On your birthday, Sarah? Seriously, she murmured, her voice filled with disbelief. I felt a cold anger settle in my stomach. It wasn't just the money, it was the utter disregard for my feelings, for the significance of the day. It was as if my birthday was just another opportunity for them to extract something from me, a transaction rather than a celebration. I didn't respond that night. I needed time to process, to let the initial wave of hurt and anger subside enough for me to think clearly. The next morning, my phone was buzzing relentlessly. My mother had called 4 times and sent half a dozen texts, each one escalating the pressure. Sarah, please. Your father is beside himself. We've done so much for you over the years, we just need a little help now. Is this how you treat your own parents? My father even sent a separate text, a shorter, more subdued one, your mother's really upset. Can you please just help them out? He always played the role of the reasonable mediator, but his silence on their behavior was just as complicit. That was when the numbers stopped looking accidental. $2,600. It wasn't an arbitrary sum. It was always a figure just within my reach, enough to be a sacrifice but not so much that I couldn't possibly cover it. I realized then that this wasn't about genuine emergency, it was about control. Their absence from my birthday wasn't just forgetfulness or a sudden illness, it was a demonstration of their power, a way to keep me off balance, to make me feel less important, before hitting me with the demand. It was a calculated move, whether conscious or unconscious, to ensure I felt obligated. The porcelain bird on my dresser suddenly felt less like an anchor and more like a fragile thing, constantly in danger of being shattered by their demands. I had always tried to keep it safe, to keep them safe, but I was the one breaking. I spent the next day reviewing my finances, not because I doubted I could afford it, but because I needed to see clearly what I was giving up. This $2,600 would mean delaying a much-needed upgrade to my design software, or pushing back my savings goal for a down payment. It wasn't just their money, it was my future. I also scrolled through old text messages, finding countless promises of repayment, all unfulfilled. We'll get you back next month, honey. Just a little longer, we promise. There was no paper trail, no formal loan agreements, just a history of my generosity being taken for granted. I talked to Emily again, laying out the whole saga. They're never going to change, Sarah, she said gently. You have to change how you react to them. Her words, though simple, resonated deeply. I knew she was right. I needed to set a boundary, a real one, for the first time in my life. I drafted a response in my head, then on paper, then deleted it. Too angry, too emotional. I needed to be calm, firm, and clear. As a graphic designer, I prided myself on clear communication, on conveying a message effectively. This was no different. I decided a phone call was necessary, a text would allow them to dismiss my words too easily. I took a deep breath, clutching the small porcelain bird in my hand, feeling its familiar, smooth coolness. It was chipped, but it was still whole. I could be too. I called my mother that evening. Her voice was immediately strained, laced with a familiar edge of impatience. "Sarah? Did you get my texts? About the car?" "Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I did. And I'm not going to send you the $2,600. There was a beat of stunned silence on the other end. Then, a sharp intake of breath. "What? Sarah, what are you talking about? The car is broken. Your father needs it for work." "I understand there's a problem with the car," I continued, choosing my words carefully. "But this isn't about the car, Mom. This is about a pattern. You skipped my birthday dinner, a dinner I told you was important to me. You didn't even offer a real apology. And then, an hour later, you text me demanding a large sum of money. It's not acceptable." Her voice rose, thin and reedy. "How dare you, Sarah? We're your parents. We've sacrificed everything for you. And you're going to hold a broken car over our heads because of a dinner? I wasn't feeling well. You're being incredibly selfish." "It's not selfish to expect respect, Mom," I countered, my voice still calm, though my heart was pounding. "It's not selfish to expect you to show up for me, especially when you say you will. And it's not selfish to say no to constant financial demands that are never repaid, especially when they come after you've dismissed my feelings." "So, that's it then," she shrieked. "You're just going to abandon us? After everything? What kind of daughter are you?" "I'm a daughter who's tired of being treated like an ATM and an afterthought," I said, the words feeling liberating as they left my mouth. "I'm not abandoning you, Mom. I'm setting a boundary. I love you, but I cannot keep bailing you out like this, especially when you show such little regard for me." She hung up on me. The silence that followed was deafening, but it wasn't the heavy, suffocating silence I was used to. It felt lighter, cleaner. My father texted me later that night, a simple message: "Your mother is heartbroken. This isn't like you, Sarah." I didn't respond. I knew what I had done was necessary. The next few weeks were tense. My mother didn't call, but she sent a few icy text messages, mostly passive-aggressive remarks about how some people only cared about themselves. My aunt, my mother's sister, called me, clearly having been given a heavily skewed version of events. "Your mother says you refused to help them with the car, Sarah," she began, a note of disapproval in her voice. I calmly explained my side, emphasizing the birthday and the pattern, not just the money. My aunt listened, surprisingly, and then said, "Well, she did sound a little vague about why she missed your dinner." It wasn't an endorsement, but it wasn't condemnation either. It was a crack in my mother's narrative. I didn't send the $2,600. My parents eventually found another way to fix their car, probably another loan from a different relative, or perhaps they finally dipped into their own savings, a concept they usually avoided. The immediate practical consequence was a cold war between us. We didn't speak for nearly 2 months. It hurt, of course, but for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel the crushing weight of their financial demands. I used a portion of that $2,600 to finally upgrade my design software, a practical investment in my own business, a symbolic act of investing in myself. When my mother finally called, her voice was subdued. She didn't apologize for the birthday or the demand, but she didn't ask for money either. The conversation was stilted, but it was a beginning. Our relationship isn't perfect now, and it likely never will be. The dynamic has shifted, though. They still try the guilt trips occasionally, but I've learned to recognize them and respond with a calm no. I visit them, but on my terms, and I no longer dread the inevitable request for money. The porcelain bird still sits on my dresser. It's still chipped, a reminder of past vulnerabilities. But now, when I look at it, I don't feel a sense of fragility. I feel a quiet strength, a reminder that I am whole, and I am in control of my own life, and my own peace.